Hey, it is your boy, Sergeant Hooked on Henshins. Make sure that microphone is working. Anybody that joins up, let me know in the chat. I know I don't have a lot of people right now. No people right now, actually. Here we're going to get loud for a minute. There we go. Much better. Get ready for speaker and hearing. Yeah, so we're doing I thought we'd do something a little different, a little live stream here to talk about my overall thoughts for Kamen Revice, and also a little bit about Geats. I want to go into more detail later when this week, Thursday, I hope if we stream again for Henshins and Homies for the podcast. We'll talk about it there too. But just wanted to kind of get Revice things out of the way and just kind of generally, talk to you guys, about stuff and such. What are these options? Nope, we need a microphone. Okay. All right. It's been a while since I've live streamed on YouTube. Things are different. But yeah, so welcome to the stream. Been really busy recently, new job and all that, so getting used to that schedule and everything. Plus, if you guys don't know, you can follow it on Twitter, the official account for Henshins and Homies. It's a new podcast I put together with my good friend Frankie Toku. Yeah, we decided to put a little podcast together to talk about all things Toku, Power Rangers, Super Sentai, Rider. We may eventually throw some of the other, different ones in there like Garo or Ultraman, stuff like that. Who knows? And also being able to highlight the community, different community members that do awesome video edits or video, essays, long-form essays about some of the shows, or in-depth analysis, or their own original ideas like Jiminger, like Decamaxing and Jiminger, and the Immortal Red Fox, stuff like that. So trying to both like I said in the if you look at the page, a little top part in the profile thing where it shows the bio thing, it says fanboying and community spotlight, kind of a thing. So being able to kind of geek out with you guys about the shows, like, oh my God, you see that effect, that transformation, whatever. And then also being able to kind of, give a good spotlight to these people in the community, and show these awesome people that do this awesome stuff. So even if the live stream right now doesn't go that far as having a lot of people, I'm still going to do it. It'll be archived on the YouTube channel there for people to watch later if they want to watch, again, and get my final thoughts on things. So Revice overall, I honestly really enjoyed my time with it. I actually already had, I don't know if I actually got my episode review up for episode 50. I thought that I did. 1 second here. But if anything, we can talk about it like now-ish is fine. I don't care. Let's see here. I gotta go to my channel on my phone and look at it mobile. Let's see here. No, I did. Okay, cool. So if you watch my episode 50 review for Revice, you kind of got my overall, sort of a taste of my overall thoughts of Revice. I think that Revice started very strong. I think that it started out quite strong. And I think throughout it did okay keeping up that strong start. There was a couple different places where it kind of started to falter a little bit. And there's a couple different things that I think had to do with that. One, I want to start on the more positive side. One positive that I think Revice did a good job with was the way that they handled the family aesthetic. They said from the start that it was all going to be about, family and, familiar relationships and stuff like that. Maybe, Doki, can you please go over there? Thank you. My Beagle's out here with me. His name is Ned. So we talked about how that was, or they said that was going to be, I got my Kuga shirt on, by the way. I got my Kuga Team Rider shirt. So how that was going to be like a big part of the show. And throughout it, they do a pretty good job of that. Not only just the sibling relationships, but their relationships with, with each other, but also their relationships with the parents with each other and with the kids. And just different things like keeping your family safe. Ikki's whole thing of being eventually it gets to being where they call him the nosiest person in Japan, because now that he's a Kamen Rider, he can kind of be everybody's big brother and get in their business and help them and stuff like that. And I like that about him. I think that him and Vice really stand out as two of the strongest characters. And I think that their dynamic is really, really good and really strong. I do think that there's things that kind of like are oddly paced throughout the show and oddly placed, PLACDED. As far as how storylines go, that's kind of where things kind of get odd with Revice, is because like they'll have a story arc and they'll have a really cool beginning and a really cool end. In the middle, they have no clue how to get between those 2 points, and it happens a lot of times. Like the whole setup with I'm trying to think of a good example. With Akaishi, right? Like, cool, he's a villain, he's the bad guy, whatever. Takes over pretty much as bad guy after Oteka is done and the Deadmans are mostly disbanded. But then it doesn't really, like, I don't know. I never really saw him as a threat. I think that he should have been introduced a lot earlier on and maybe could have toned down the cartoonishness just a little bit, because he got to be like Looney Tunes level sometimes. And the whole thing they tried doing where he was like all of a sudden wanted a family and like wanted Daiji and Phil to like be his kids and blah, blah, blah. That was just weird and went nowhere. And I don't know why they did it. It was really stupid in my opinion. But things like that, like they could have introduced Akaishi way earlier in the series. I know that they were trying to introduce a hierarchy there and focus on these first 10 episodes, kind of dealing with the Deadmans and the whole reveal about the commander guy being one of them and blah, blah, blah. I understand that. You still could have like sowed the seeds of what's to come, kind of a thing. Same thing goes for one of the other sticking points to me, is the whole thing with Weekend and the over demons thing. Over demons should never have been a thing for Hikaru at all. It always should have been something for either Hiromi or George to become demons, and that's it. Hikaru to me bothers me as a character because, and it's kind of switching to a negative, but it makes sense. They don't do enough to make me care about him. They go to way late in the show to be like, I know this is his fake, rebel family, that aren't really his mom and dad, but he actually does care about them. And it's like, but I don't. The show had to tell me their names. My reviews, I just call them Weekend Mom and Weekend Dad. Like, it took a while to even remember what their names were. And they don't even do that much. Like, the mom and dad don't even do a lot in Weekend. What does Weekend itself even do? That's another big sticking point in the show, too. So I guess I'll kind of balance a positive with a negative. So yeah, Hikaru, I think that if they would have introduced sooner and had more of a thing of him, like, yes, I get he's like watching Sakura, but really it's because he wants her to join Weekend and they think she can be a rider and blah, blah, blah. But have it be more than that. Have him like be watching sometimes here and there the fights with Ikki and, as a rider and Daiji and everything. And getting a little hyped about them, being like, I want to be a hero too. Like, I know I'm part of this group and I got to stay on the sidelines, but maybe I don't want to. Maybe I want to take a chance to, get out there and do stuff. That would have been cool. We barely get like a little bit in the background of the episode he debuts as Over Demons of him like training, I guess. I don't really know what we're doing with that. And then he just gets to be it. And like I get at that point, like they were still trying to figure things out exactly what they're going to do with Hiromi, because if we didn't know, Hiromi was supposed to die in the first episode. And because the first reaction was so good in the first episode of people really liking his character, they kept him around. And then eventually he became, demons and was demons for a while and what have you. So I do think that it didn't really make a lot of sense with Hikaru being that. Especially because he eventually just gives it over to Tamaki. So it's like, or you could just let Tamaki be his own wolf-themed rider, just like Hana got to become Kamen Rider Aguilera and retake her like dead man's name as her rider name. And not only yet, get to use her Queen Bee stamp. Cool. Again, they didn't really do that, and it's kind of odd to me a little bit. I do think the show suffers a little bit from introducing riders too soon and too many of them at one time. Not to say that some of the debuts weren't awesome, because they were pretty great. Like Daiji's debut is pretty awesome. I love his whole like end to his little mini arc in the beginning of the show, from like being jealous of his brother to realizing he has this darker half that's taking control, to the whole Kamen Rider evil arc, introducing demons also. And then him eventually being able to fully like break free of Kagero's control, kind of seal him away a little bit, or at least push him away a little bit, and become Kamen Rider Alive, right? Totally cool. I love it. And even honestly, most of what Sakura goes through as a character to become a rider is really awesome. But they do so much in that first 12 episodes to just like pump out these riders. I mean, we're getting all of these genomes, genome mixes, whatever, to sell toys and all that. And then all of a sudden we boom run into the whole thing with Daiji and Kagero and Sakura becoming writers. I apologize for all the coughing. I must be really thirsty. Anyway, so it was just really odd. It was odd, the pacing with that. And I think that it would have helped if they would have slowed things down a little bit. And it's interesting that I enjoyed Vice as much of a character as I thought I was going to, because when the show started, I wasn't sure how I felt. The only exposure to him we got was in that weird last episode of Saber where there was the fart joke for some reason. And so that was really weird. And I was kind of predispositioned against him just because of the whole voice actor thing where he was, the voice actor, Super Kimura, if you didn't know, had a lot of racist things he's done. He made fun of, he said, I think there was something blackface of him. He did a post making fun of tribal African women that wear the neck elongating, rings or whatever, and never took it back, never apologized. And when he called out for it, he just blocks people. So probably he even got hired, but he does. I will say I can separate the art from the artist, and that Vice is a decent character. I think that Vice has a lot of really cool moments. I like his evolution in the first part of the show to where he is in the end of the show, where he starts out as this just basic demon who wants to eat people, and Iki basically threatens him into becoming a good guy essentially, and he learns to become more human, just as Iki learns to be more passionate and maybe be a little more rough in terms of fighting off different evils and stuff like that, being more demon-like. They kind of have that back and forth a little. They could have done more on the side of Iki becoming more demon-like, especially with things there's images in the theme song. That's what are we doing there? So I do think he has a decent arc throughout the show along with Iki. I think there are certain arcs that could have lasted longer and been more in depth, but I think overall he's a decent character. And I like his relationship with Iki. I like the whole idea that they have these, they transform together. When Iki transforms, his inner demon comes out and transforms with him. That's a really cool thing. We have our first dual main rider kind of a thing. Technically Double was 2 in 1. This is 2 separate, but they're considered the main rider. So I do kind of wish that, for one, I think that Jack Revice should have stayed around longer. That bothered me a whole lot. I do feel like later on in the show, they kind of just form rush a little too much. We get Buried Rex, and an episode or two later, we get, what's it called? Volcano, right? Which is this upgrade for it or whatever. It just felt weird to have it placed that way. I don't know. I thought it was odd. I thought they could have slowed down a little bit. And then we get Jack Revice, and it's not even in there for, I think, 4 episodes before we already move on to the invention of Thunder Gale, which I get they needed it. I get it with story-wise why it happened. But again, it all goes back to the one main negative I have with Revice, which is its pacing. I think that if it were to pace itself slower in certain parts or speed other parts up a little bit, it would have been better. One thing where it could have sped things up a little bit is the Daiji arc near the end, where he's evil Daiji, or just essentially Daiji without Kagero, and that, without his darkness there, he was too righteous. Cool, but they spend way too long getting there, and then, being affected, I think, a little too much with the whole, oh, well, fans really like Kagero, we were going to keep him dead, so let's bring him back, because they pretty much make it clear in their final clash that Kagero's done. And then he's oh no, actually, what you didn't know, truly, what was really going on was that I was inside the stamp, the Holy Live stamp, which is weird because that's another thing that's weird is the technology in this. They you get it that the first stamps are based off a rider and whatever and have an animal motif with it, but they're all made by George, and most of them are made by George or his dad, but they never make it clear that the Holy Live stamp could hold Kagero. They made it clear that if he won, it would have been his stamp and he would have been his power up. But they never made it clear that he could live within it. So it's kind of weird. I don't hate Ability Live. I think it's a decent kit bash upgrade for Holy Live, and just for Live in general. I think the name is ridiculous and stupid, and it makes me angry that they missed their chance to call it Live Devil, which is just, It's the same thing, forward and backward. It's a not parallelogram. Oh my god, I can't remember what that kind of word is, but it's the one where it's the same way, you spelled the same way forward and backward. Like you read it forward, read it backward, it's the same word. That would have been better. So they called it Ability Live. Okay. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. I also don't understand one other negative. I wasn't quite sure what they were trying to do with the whole thing with Sakura. I found that really odd. It was like they both wanted and not wanted to make them be like the first lesbian couple on the show or in Rider. And like they always would randomly like throw in a thing where it's like, well, you're just like family, you're a sister, but it's like they're taking a bath together and like going on dates. Like, we get it. Like, they're lesbians and that's okay. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess there's only so much they're gonna do in a kid's show. It's just like, don't like half-ass it. Don't like leave it lingering as a possibility. Just like do it. Like, I've always said this before, and I said it in our episode 0 stream on Henshins and Heroes, or Henshins and Homies, that do it, when you're writing for a kid's show or something that's meant for a younger demographic, don't write down to kids, write to them. They're smarter than you think. They don't need, a fart joke every now and then. They don't need, dumb storylines that last like 3 seconds and they're done. So that's one of the negatives there is that Hana and Sakura's thing could have been a little better paced, I guess you could say, and just more clear what they were doing with that. I do think the Deadmans are great villains. I think they're probably my favorites of the show because GIF is a nothing, but we'll get there. And I do wish, because they leave it hanging so much about Olteka being around, they would have done more with him. I kind of had this thought near the end that there's so many of the storylines, the thing with George and Juga, and even Sakura's, last minute final form power up, and a few other things I think could have easily happened before they defeated GIF. And then it could have been like this united front where we have Revi and Vite, ultimate Revice, so the two of them in their ultimate forms clearly. Ability Live, so you have the whole Kagero and Daiji thing figured out in their final form. Muteki Jean, Kamen Rider Aguilera, you have Juga, and you have Over Demons Tamaki, all on the same like team fighting together and like kicking GIF's ass. Absolutely. And we didn't get that. And like, I'm not gonna like sit here and be like, I didn't follow my fan fiction, how dare they? But like, I don't know. I feel like something like that would have been better received than what we had, because we get rid of GIF in episode 45, 46. Not that I miss him at all, but like, it seems weird to get rid of the final big bad that soon, and then all of a sudden jump into this thing where it's like, but actually George has a mental breakdown and never got to talk to his dad and blah, 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 except Masumi many times near the end of the show tried to approach George and talk to him and repent for what he did, leaving him alone and having to live in the shadows and make him think he was dead. And he just never talked about it, never really had any kind of discussion. And so it was kind of weird to me that they did it that way. The Juga thing with George, I think is cool. It's a cool concept. The suit is awesome. I love the jingle that it's like, the suit looks Ultimate Kuga inspired. Totally cool. His pose has like Black RX / Ichigo stuff in it. Awesome. Or black in it, Kamen Rider Black / Ichigo poses, inspirations. But it just happened so close to the end that I don't care. Like, we're not going to kill George. So if it's not the final big bad, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And like, GIF isn't the worst big bad we can have, but we don't establish early enough, and they never really, even all the way to the end of him, what kind of a villain he was. Is he one with a personality where he's going to talk and be an ass like Evolt? Or is he like a force of nature villain thing like Gamedeus and X8? I love X8. Gamedeus is decent as an obstacle, basically a monster in that show, because he doesn't have a personality. He's just an evil virus code thing that screws shit up, and then all the humans are the ones that fuck everything else up. And so it doesn't matter when they destroy him. It's like, okay, cool, we're done, and we move on, and then the extra content adds some other little villains to have, because Gamedeus is done, and he was just like this external oogie boogie man, threat. Whereas GIF is like throughout the show, like, oh, it's GIF, and he's the one's going to bring about the end of the world. And there's the whole thing where Akaishi's trying to make people like join the cult of like sacrificing themselves for GIF and whatever. And it's like, why? Like, and either A, introduce sooner that he has this personality and wants, and they're going to make him talk and whatever throughout, or don't do that, but then have this extra lingering character stuff happen. I am fine with the Vice and Icky stuff happening last 2 episodes. That was fine. I love that. But the rest of the stuff could have happened before they defeated Gift, so that when they get to the episode where we're going to kick Gift's ass, they can do it all together, and that'd be really cool. And then the last thing to deal with will be just Icky and Vice's thing with Icky's memory. And so they don't do that, and it just seems weird to like defeat him that easily, in my opinion. So yeah, it was odd, and also like the whole like destroy the Gifusi statue thing. I'm never gonna forget that Gifusi. The Gifusi statue thing like weakens him in the normal world or something, and it's like we never established that either. What are we talking about? I know I didn't mention that in my review, but I thought about it afterwards. I was like, what are we doing here? So again, I do really truly feel as though the positives in Revice outweigh the negatives, in my opinion. I don't think that they make it that the negatives are so awful that you shouldn't watch it. I definitely think if someone has never watched Predator before, they could easily watch Revice and still enjoy it, because yes, it's a 50th anniversary season, but it kind of took the Zenkaiger Don Brothers approach of like those elements are there, but they're not like telling the story. Like Gokaiger, the tribute episodes were necessary to tell the story because they're learning from every single team going up to that, up to them at that point in time. Same thing with like Decade. That was like pivotal to the story, these other writers. Same thing with Gio. That was pivotal to him. But Revice didn't need the anniversary to be pivotal to tell a story, and I respect the hell out of that, because I think that while I love Decade, it's one of my favorite seasons, and while I adore Gokaiger, it's one of my top Sentai seasons, I think they broke the mold, and let's leave it broken. Let's not try to recreate it and do it again. They just leave it alone. It's okay. I don't mind some things that Gio did, but I even started feeling that way with Gio. Like, we've already done something like this. Let's not rehash the same thing again. But that's another discussion for another time. But anyway, another time. Time travel. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I really respect about Revice, is that it gives us some decent characters, some decent moments, some really awesome fight sequences, some decent narratives. I think for the most part, the rest of the Dead Man's Era left besides Oteka do a great job having a part in the show. Like Sakura's whole thing with Hana is great, and Hana has a nice characterization, and her debut could have been better. I think could have been better as a two-parter, but I think it's fine as it is. Tamaki, I think they just waited too long, and they should have been ready earlier to stop making him the comedic relief, especially because Oteka literally like murders his friend in front of him, and he goes like ham Super Saiyan demon mode to like kick his ass for a while. So I think that they could have done a little bit more with him sooner to make him a writer, in my opinion. So yeah. But yeah, so I think George ends up decent also. Again, the Juga stuff is cool, could have happened sooner. The last thing I want to talk about too, before I give like an overall thing about it, is that I really enjoyed the last 2 episodes. I like that it was a setup by Vice to make Icky think he had killed his whole family, so Icky will finally destroy him, be okay with destroying him, so that he can get his memories back, realizing that the contract has not ended because Icky views Vice as part of his family. Something none of us really thought about. Like, we knew they were buddy bros, but we never thought it was that in depth to where the contract being about him losing his memories was tied to that. And so it's pretty heartfelt. Like, yeah, it's a little goofy with him like fighting Deathstream and the whole giant ducky thing, and he eats him and farts him out and whatever. But it's pretty heartfelt. Excuse me. It's pretty heartfelt. How everything gets put together later on, and how they end up piecing things together. I really enjoyed that. I think it was really cool, their fight leading up to their last moments together, where they're like genome switching, each other. They're both genome switching, the whole fight, because we get to see Vice have like separate, his separate genome form suits, separate from Icky, because they both have their own driver now. That was a really cool thing, like the whole like making another Revice driver and giving it to Vice so that they can tension separately from each other and like do the Ultimate Revice thing. I like Ultimate Revice. I love how the suit looks. I thought the debut episode was great. I love conceptually how it works. And I think it's cool that we leave it up in the air as far as him being able to like have a driver and do his thing. I think that's really cool. So they have their final thing. They fight, and it's super intense. And clearly Vice disappears. And it's sad, but it's not like permanent. I don't feel like clearly, because we're gonna get like the winter crossover movie with Geats. which we'll get to that in a minute. And, you know, other crossover opportunities, I don't think he's truly gone, especially because there are scenes near the end where, like, I feel like it was similar again to where Vale is, like, kind of sealed away within him somewhere deep down. Same thing. I think Vice is kind of, like, gone, so the contract is done, but he's not completely gone. And I think there's a few scenes near the end where Icky, like, kind of acts like him a little bit. He's at the spa, and they have little duckies that have Vice's face. He's like, oh, what's that? And they're like, oh, it's just something we like. And they're trying to, like, slowly remind him of Vice, but never, like, fully too much in his face, not to cause any trauma or PTSD, you know? And he says something or does some kind of mannerism that's very Vice-like. And it's like, whoa, what are we doing there? And I think it's just trying to insinuate, like, Vice had an effect on him. Vice had an impact on him. And he's carrying that through, even subconsciously. He doesn't even know that he is. And I think that's really cool. And I'm happy that they went with it, because, like, I think a lot of shows could have, like, done something like that pretty shocking, like killing off a really primary important character. And they don't. And I like that he did that. That's honestly, I know people had similar, I mean, just a bit of a tangent. I know people hated the O's 10 years after thing or whatever. I kind of liked it. Like, I think it took balls for them to be like, oh, spoilers about 10 years after O's, but on AG, and it's just Ankh left over. That's really cool. I think that's cool. I think it takes balls, and I think that it takes a lot of, like, guts to be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. We're going with it. So anyway, I'm having a ton of people watching, but that's okay. This is mainly just like a long form diary to catch my thoughts here. Anyway, so I do think overall Revice is great. I think that it has some problems, but to me, I don't quite feel that the negatives are outweighed, or that the positives are outweighed by the negatives. I think the positives far outweigh the negatives. I think there are some really awesome classic writer-esque moments that happen in it, like, you know, that either are callback or just evocative of previous writers. Icky's an amazing primary writer. His dedication to helping people, even if it puts his life on the line or his memories might be gone, he's still going to do it. I love that. Hiromi is one of the very best tertiary writers we have gotten in this series. I love him. His dedication to just, like, selflessly throwing his life away if it means protecting people, and then he has to kind of change that to, like, being super dedicated or whatever he says near the end when he's finding ability live, or I mean, just live actually. And so, I think that's really cool. And Hiromi's, like, one of my favorites. What's cool is he kind of feels like a Showa writer brought to the present. And I think that's a really cool idea, because the way that his ideologies are, the way he sees things, the way he views the world, and the way he sees justice in general definitely gives me that vibe of, like, a Showa era writer brought to the modern day times. I keep flickering between, like, 0 and 1 person, so I don't know if there's something with my connection or something. But again, it's not a big deal. A lot of people join this. I know it was kind of a, you know, random type of thing to do as far as a stream at a random time on a Sunday afternoon. Let's see here. Just making sure I see anybody. Okay. But yeah, so I think that he's an awesome character. I for the most part enjoyed Daiji, but I think I like Sakura's arc and her more, in my opinion. He had his little moments here and there. I do like near the end where he has to, like, be strong when it's revealed that, like, Icky has lost entirely all of his memories of his whole family. But I think, are you taking on the dog? I think my wife's trying to call the dog in, but she closed the door before he had a chance. Anyway, I think that was really cool, seeing, like, Sakura falling apart and him. 1 second. Let my dog in. Just a minute. Did you want to go inside? Who's doing that thing? Okay. Alrighty. We're going to be done there. We'll talk about the Geats stuff later. But thank you guys so much for joining the stream, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.